we have news about Silent Hill F, and when anything drops, I'm probably almost certainly going to be sure about talking about it, unless it's something so small and meaningless that it doesn't really matter. So, basically, Silent Hill F was going to be banned in Australia originally. So the idea was that it was refused classification in Australia, and I mean, Australia's been known for banning games quite often, and in fact, this was actually going to be a reason for me to talk about certain games that are actually banned in Australia currently. In fact, there are also some upcoming games that I'm quite surprised are also going to be unavailable in Australia. And I say banned, it's not a great word to use, because ultimately banned means that you cannot own it. But the thing is that when something is refused classification by the Australian Classifications Board, it just means that you can't sell the game. But there have been instances where people have owned copies of games that cannot be sold within the country or within the borders of the country that have put people in jail, and those have largely been things that aren't stuff that you buy from websites like JList, because that basically Australia banned all imports of anything that you buy from JList, which is a website that you can buy different types of Japanese goods. But I think the most obvious things you probably go there for is the hentai manga section, anything to do with JAVs or Japanese adult videos, or God forbid if anybody want to go down that route, also sex toys. They have an interesting assortment, so to speak. Not that I've perused that all that much, take that for what it's worth. But basically, what originally happened was that Silent Hill might not release in Australia because of the country's classification board, which gave it a refused classification. Now, only maybe not even 10 years ago, maybe like 9 years ago, the first game that released with an R18 plus rating was Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, if I'm remembering correctly. So it was only just recently that Australia did even get an R18 plus rating, and a lot of games have actually been banned under this, largely due to things like drug use. For some reason, drugs is something that the Australian Classification Board just absolutely despise. But I say was going to be banned. Obviously, the decision has been retracted. So the update actually happened today, of all days. The ban on Silent Hill F has been retracted in Australia. The initial ban handed down by the Classifications Board was presumably an automated result. Silent Hill F is currently not currently classified as refused classification in Australia, a spokesperson for the Classification Board said in a statement provided to PC Gamer. The 14th March 2025 entry on the National Classification Database has been removed. A classification decision will be published to the National Classification Database ahead of the game's release. And that's when I go into the Game Rant article, which goes into the fact that Silent Hill F is waiting for the classification by the board. And I wonder, like, if the main thing is that this game is most likely, if it does get rated, it can't be less than an R18 plus for Australia. Now, the equivalency in my country, or I guess like we'll use the US as an example, it's an M rating or it's an 18 PEGI rating in the UK. In my local region, it's an R18, but things need to be pretty disgusting to get the R18 rating, and so most things generally tend to fall at an R16 rating. Which is the slightly less restricted version, but still restricted regardless. But I wanted to talk about the content from the Steam page to start off with, and then talk about games that are banned in Australia. So basically, on the Steam page, Neobards, which is the developer, has warned players about Silent Hill F's content staying deficient. Okay, this first one is not disturbing, alright? Depictions of gender discrimination is not disturbing. Let's just move on from that. Child abuse, now that's disturbing. Bullying, depending on who you are, that may or may not be disturbing. To me, it is not. Drug-induced hallucinations, that's probably what got Silent Hill F the original ban hammer, if I'm being completely honest. Because hey, if you're not sniffing up shrooms, then I don't know what the hell you're doing with them. Torture. I thought Australia was a fan of torture. They seem to be doing it daily to their kids. Anyway, and graphic violence, which is, I mean, sure. This one actually surprises me. The last two, torture and graphic violence. This is not, so you do see some stuff like that in Silent Hill games, but it doesn't go to a particularly extreme extent. The word graphic depicts that it is going to be fairly extreme, and I'm interested. I feel like that's like this stuff is dragging me more into I am more interested in the game now than I was previously point. Basically, I'm more interested now than I was previously, is all I'm trying to say. Additionally, the developer issued another disclaimer on the game's description of depiction of Japanese culture, explaining it doesn't reflect the opinions or values of the developers or any individuals involved in creation. Okay, cool. While the game is waiting for classification, players should buckle up for an unsettling experience, which is to be expected. I mean, look at the art, look at the trailer. Hopefully, the gameplay is reflective of that as well. But anyway, moving on from the fact that Silent Hill F is just, it looks like a good time if I'm being completely honest. Let's actually have a look at banned games in Australia, because this is where things get real interesting. So, the list of things that, so here's a list of things that basically kind of fall under the category that usually would get a game put on there. So, you know, detailed instruction or promotion of crimes or violence. I'm surprised GTA hasn't been, you know what, I'm not even going to go down that path. Depiction of, I mean, sure, I guess, but the problem is, I'm pretty sure a lot of movies do that. Anyway, promotion and provision of instruction in pedophilic activity. I mean, that is wrong, don't get me wrong. Oh, sure, whatever. Description and depictions of child sexual abuse and or exploitative or offensive. This feels very vague. Why does this feel very vague? Anyway, gratuitous exploitative or offensive depictions of violence to an extremely high degree. Cruel or real violence, which are detailed. Cruelty or violence that are really very detailed or which have extremely high impact. And the sexy time violence. Cool. Depictions of practices such as Reading this aloud makes it seem a lot weirder than it actually is. No, actually, it's still weird. It's still, you know what? I'm going to move on from this. I'm not going to stick around too much. But basically, the game that surprised me the most was the fact that Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact has actually been banned and refused classification in Australia, which surprises me a lot. I did not think, like, because basically Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact is a 2D fighting game in the Hunter x Hunter universe. This is the one that I just saw this. I was like, what? How? Like, implied sexual violence involving minors? Really? I don't remember much of that in Hunter x Hunter, but sure, I guess. And I mean, it just, yeah, there's like a few things sort of here and there, but I think one of the main things you'll probably see is a lot to do with drugs, especially. I think that's probably one of the big things. I mean, Wasteland 3, while originally banned, was given a censored version later on because the use of drugs was related to basically the incentives of the game. Alter the Bug Butcher, banned because of drug use due to incentives and rewards. Censored version was released with an M rating, and so M is basically their rating for anyone can buy it. There is no restriction on like having to look at someone's ID in order to actually sell them the game. What else have we got here? Oh, Saints Row 4, the alien narcotics. I totally forgot about this. So banned because of sexual violence and drug use related to incentives and rewards. Appeal was lodged but failed, and though the content involving sexual violence was overturned, cool, but the drugs were not. That's crazy. Edited version lacked a mission involving alien narcotics. So basically, because of one mission, Saints Row 4 was banned. What else do we have here? State of Decay, banned because of drug use. incentives and rewards. Censored version was then later released, changing drugs to vitamins. Jesus Christ. Alright, fine. What else have we got here? Witcher 2, that was for sexuality and nudity, so we can just ignore that one. I'm basically looking at the ones that have to do with drugs at this point. High impact violence, later censored version, so Necrovision, probably not the point there. Torture scenes, okay, that's a new one for Silent Hill Homecoming. High impact violence, yeah, I mean, Manhunt 2, not officially banned, but was never submitted to the ACB over fears it would be... Yeah, I think Manhunt 2 would have almost certainly been banned without, a shadow of a doubt, I feel like. And most of these games are also in, like, the 2000s of all things, which is kind of interesting to see. What else have we got here? Okay, Reservoir Dogs was a surprising one. It's just the high impact violence, like, sure enough. Bulletproof 50 Cent. High impact violence. Okay, fine. Yeah, sure. Let's see. Narc. Drug use. Blitz the League. Drug use. What else we got? Yeah, torture for Manhunt. Oh, okay, it was originally rated and then removed. That's funny. Oh my god. So yeah, the MA15 Plus is like when you actually have to show your ID in order to get a game. The Getaway... Okay, so originally released in an MA15, was later resubmitted, banned, and then because of torture, and then a censored version was released afterwards. Therefore, having an MA15 Plus rating on both the before and after, that's actually pretty damn funny, all things considered. But basically, yeah, all things considered, Australia is pretty strict when it comes to banning games. I feel like it's significantly more so. Some of the descriptions aren't really as apt at times. Like, for example, Risen, banned because of sexual activity and drug use related to incentives and rewards. If I try to buy Risen in my local, in my local country, it's rated as an R13. So, like, as long as it's 13 years or over, you can just buy the game. And if you look under the age of 13, the people are going to ask you for your ID. Worst case scenario, you know what I mean? State of Decay is available in my country and, was never, like, censored either. Saints Row 4, that was a fun one, is actually available in my country but never was released in Australia originally before the edited version released, even though, like, my country is, like, so close to, like, Australia, and in fact quite a lot of the ratings are fairly similar, like G, PG, M, but then after that it's like completely different. All things considered, like, I think Australia is just like a really, really weird place when it comes down to banning games. But yeah, let's see. Oh, okay, this is interesting. I didn't know this, but classification is compulsory and games refused are banned for sale, hire, or public exhibition, carrying a maximum fine of $275,000 and or 10 years in jail. It is, however, legal to possess refused classification games, except in Western Australia and prescribed areas of the Northern Territory. That's crazy. Holy cow. But anyway, with all that being said, I'm actually very curious. What do you guys think about all of this in the comments below? Because this is just fascinating stuff, and maybe I could do a bit more of a deep dive into like each of these games and exactly like for what reasons were they, removed from sale or refused classification as a whole. Sure, like some of these explanations are quite shallow, let's say, but I wonder if it'll be worth going into a little bit more detail. But let me know what you guys think about all of that in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.